Hello and welcome to the next episode of Cylinder Radio. I'm your host, Will Reusch, high school teacher in Los Angeles, trying to get us through the madness. And my guest today is someone that I have been enjoying for quite a while now. And I'm a believer in the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So I've been kind of bothering him to come on my podcast. And I'm really excited for him to be here. Lou Perez, who is the producer and writer for We the Internet TV, among other things. But we're going to talk about using comedy to guide us through the craziness that we're in right now in 2020. Lou, thank you so much for being here, man.
Well, thank you for having me. I feel like since you're a teacher, I need to call you Mr. Reusch. Or is that a?
Yeah, that's what they call me. But no, you don't.
I'll raise my hand. Yeah, Mr. Reusch.
It's so strange now because I'm teaching online. They have to type hand in the comments. Oh, it's a mess. Can you give us your background a little bit? How do you have a background in TV and film? Is that what it is?
Yeah. So I started doing comedy in college at NYU. So NYU is known for Tisch, the drama department and the screenwriting and TV writing department. I wasn't in Tisch. I was in a small school called Gallatin for individualized study. I was basically an English major. And I'd always wanted to try improv. So I think it was either my sophomore or junior year, I decided, hey, I'm going to go out and try to do improv. And that sort of, just sort of set me on a road to doing comedy. So we went from being a college group to a group that was performing at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater in New York. And and from then on, I've been producing video content with my longtime partner, Greg Burke. We have a duo called Greg and Lou.
Okay.
And and that brings us to, today where I'm making videos for We the Internet TV, which I've been doing for the past 5 years or so.
Yeah. And I want to get into some of the specific videos, but if you are unaware of We the Internet TV, I think a lot of my audience are people who would be aware of it just by the nature of it, but you need to check it out. I mean, are your political leanings more libertarian right?
Yeah, I'm definitely libertarian. I go up to I go to a lot of events that have liberty somewhere in it, in the titleage. So I feel like libertarians need to step out a little bit and just start using different words. Just because there's Liberty Forum that I go to almost every year. But yeah, I'm a libertarian. Haven't always been a libertarian. But yeah, I would probably describe myself small L libertarian. I don't get involved in the party conflicts and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the big things that it seems like you guys are about, and it seems like you're about, correct me if I'm wrong, is just highlighting hypocrisy and taking down elitism, and that can be on both sides. So people that like my stuff is they're libertarian small L with on the left or the right. Does that seem pretty accurate that you like highlighting just the hypocrisy and the madness? Doesn't really matter where it falls as far as left or right, Democrat, Republican?
Yeah, I would say that, there were a lot of people who were, saying like, oh man, Trump has killed comedy, right? I was totally prepared for a Clinton presidency, so I was sort of gearing up for that. And then Trump came and threw us a curveball. But, when it comes to politics, when it comes to culture, there's never a shortage of hypocrisy to point out. Yeah. And, I happen to be in a really lucky position where all I have to do is point out the hypocrisy and make fun of it. I don't actually have to come up with any ideas on how to fix the actual issues. Yeah. So I'm, thankfully that's not, that's not my department. But yeah, there's it's just a wellspring when it comes to hypocrisy. And I think for the real world applications of seeing, hypocrisy in the before you, at some point, I guess you have to just stop just pointing it out and laughing at it and being like, okay, now if we want to be serious people, now what do we do about it? And so hopefully, people are able to laugh at the stuff I do, and then, maybe get, some ideas out of it as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you do. I think you do bring up like important nuance. I think that's what it's really about. Like the way to combat hypocrisy is nuance, because hypocrisy is often done in such a way where it's just very myopic, very just like surface level stuff. And you bring in some of that nuance, even in your, the really funny sketches, they involve like, well, what about this? Well, don't forget about this stuff. Did you read Douglas Murray's book, Madness of Crowds?
Yeah, I read it.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's great. And I feel like it's a whole book just highlighting just all the hypocrisy, especially with like the woke stuff. Like they say this, but it doesn't apply here, 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 here. Like, what about that? And that is funny. It can be funny just to look at the absurdity of things that people are just buying hook, line, and sinker. Like, we have to be able to laugh at that.
Oh yeah, and I think he's really insightful in one particular point that I've heard him talk about on like the Joe Rogan podcast. If any of your listeners want to check out that episode, if you give Douglas Murray, 2 hours to talk in dialogue, it's going to be entertaining and I think very insightful. And one of the things that he pointed out is when it comes to, identity politics, there's this idea of equal, but also special, so there's the idea of, women are equal to men, but also a little better than men, and we're seeing that also as it plays out with things like, when it comes to like lived experience and things like that, the idea that we're equal, but you know what, this particular, subset of individuals, because of whatever identity markers they have, they're just a little bit better. And, when you're playing with, when you're trying to, play with those rules, there's going to be a breakdown because it just doesn't hold up.
Yeah. Or, it's crucial. You must understand what it's like to be me, but you will never understand what it's like to be me. And it's just, and then you can't turn that around. You'll just tie yourself into knots. I keep telling people this because they reach out to me as teachers and others who say like, I'm trying to make sense of this. And I'm just like, you can't. So you just can't. I think perhaps part of it is sitting back, making fun of it. And then like, you're not making fun of it either in a way that's like cruel. It's like, it's very like light, silly. And I think that's kind of part of it too. I know Andrew Schulze he's killing it right now, doing a similar thing. Like, but what you guys do on We the Internet TV, you're bringing light to things that the New York Times should be, but they're not.
I appreciate that. And, and I gotta hand it to Andrew Schulze. Like,
yeah.
If you take Andrew Schulze's videos that he's doing, right, and compare that to everybody working in a late night comedy right now, right? Whether it's political comedy or just late night comedy, that dude has impeccable delivery.
Yeah.
He's so polished. He's such a pro at what he does, where it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Why doesn't he have a show?
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't he on late night and all that? And I think it really, just shows us where we are, in the culture where he doesn't need to. He doesn't need to be on late night. He has his own thing going on. But yeah, I've been really impressed by the stuff that I've seen. I haven't seen a new release in a while. I don't know if it's just like it's not showing up in my in my Instagram or something like that. But yeah, he's a really talented guy. When I started doing stand-up comedy, I think probably almost 10 years ago, I had a friend of mine in comedy. We would see each other at shows and all that, who was putting on a show in Midtown, and he had me host. And I think maybe I had like 10 minutes of material, and I was supposed to open with like 15 minutes of material, and it was a very hard show for me. And Andrew Schulze, actually, he headlined. And there was an awkward thing of, you're supposed to light the guy when he's supposed to come off. And I did, and Andrew just kept going. And I did, and I kept going. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, he's gone over like a half hour. I think we got to get out of here. So it was an awkward situation for a youngish stand-up comedian to be in, where, not only did I kind of suck, but also how do you tell the headliner, hey man, we got to clean up for the next show.
Yeah, he's good. But I mean, I think that what you're doing is really great too. And I think that like, I look at people who are uncancelable. You know, I watched the South Park, what was it called? The quarantine special or pandemic special. And it's, I mean, South Park is one of those things that's uncancelable. And people who don't know about South Park, and they're like, oh my God, they're gonna die because of this episode. It's so not PC. It's like, no, they're untouchable. I think Chappelle is kind of untouchable. Um, and I think that should be kind of one of the goals, I guess, of comedy should be to get to that point where people aren't going to go after you because they know it's not going to get them where they want. I mean, I don't know. I mean, are you worried about your stuff being, even though it is kind of light and it's just silly, but it's also calling out those elites. It's calling out the hypocrisy. It's not PC. Do you worry about getting canceled? Like,
Um,
quote unquote?
do I work? Yeah, I mean, I would love to keep working. That would be
Yeah.
fantastic. I think I'm sort of put in this position where, you know, a couple of years ago, it was just me and my wife, right? So, you know, I could be, you know, kind of without a care in the world in a way, and put my stuff out there.
Yeah.
Now I have a child, you know, so a few things go through my mind where it's like, uh, how would I describe it? I would describe it like this: sort of, when I go to a restaurant, if I go to like my favorite restaurant, right, and I order my favorite dish, but it happens that something is a little off on the dish, like, oh, you know, it needed salt or something like
Yeah.
that, and the waiter asks, you know, how was the meal? But I'm that guy who might be like, hey, you know, it was a little, needed a little bit more salt, right? My intention there is to help the guy, to say like, hey, I want to come back, and I'm going to come back. I just want you to be a little, you know, more mindful of the salt, right? But the reality is, like with cancel culture, you know, if you want to use that word, that term, or public shaming,
Yeah.
these people don't want you to eat. You know, they don't want you to ever work again, and it's upsetting, because one of the big things about, you know, doing comedy is you are always setting yourself up in a way for potentially failing, right? A joke might not
Mhm.
work, right? So you're always, you know, tossing things out there, and you don't know necessarily what's going to land. So I think we really do need to get back to more of a culture that is a little bit more forgiving, I think, and also saying, hey, you know what? If I have a problem with something you say, my first instinct isn't to call up your boss and say that you shouldn't be working where you're working, or to go online and say, let's pile on to this person. But, you know, as far as, you know, canceling stuff, I was brought someone brought to my attention, like, some jokes that I had made from a while back, and they're basically saying like, you know, I don't know if you necessarily want this out there. And I was of the mind of like, no, man, free speech. I'm going to put, you know, like,
Yeah.
no, man, it's staying out there. I did it. It's staying out there. That's it. But then, you know, I took a moment, and I happened to go and look at the joke or the tweet in question. I was like, man, I don't even remember tweeting this, and it's from like 5 years ago. And it's like, you know what? I actually don't like the way that this comes across. You know, it's
Hmm.
kind of a first draft, and
Right. Right.
I would much rather um, people, you know, get an idea of my work from the more polished stuff, right? So I sort of
Yeah.
look at it like that. But you know, I'm, but even with that, it's sort of, I wonder, am I willing to, you know, sort of, you know, lose a paycheck over this, that, or the other thing? And sometimes you have to say, yeah, I am willing
Mhm.
to do that, because what's more important in this instance is the work that I'm putting out there.
Yeah, it's art. And I think that, you know, that's a good point, because if you want to take it down because you know what, this isn't actually the best way I can communicate this idea I have, that's a different thing than I'm going to take this down because I'm scared that people will come after me. I see that very, very differently. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
and you know, and to your point with, you
Mhm.
know, people like Chappelle, and institutions like South Park, you know, ultimately, if you're a nobody, you know, you need people who are in positions of power, who have the FU money, if you will,
Yeah.
who are kind of untouchable and able to say and to push back against the mob. And I obviously, as somebody who puts my stuff out there, it's my hope that should I ever get into real hot water, for one, I hope it's worth it. Like, I hope it's a real good joke. I hope it's
Yeah.
you always hope it's a joke or a line where your inquisitors will say it out loud and the room will laugh. Like that's what that's what you hope for.
That's
But
a great goal. Yeah.
but you do hope that there are people who are standing up and will have your back.
Yeah, I want to touch on just a couple of the sketches because there's so many that are great. Um, uh, like just for an example, for people who aren't familiar, one of them would be like burglars for gun control, right? So it's this idea of like who would benefit from gun control the most would be burglars, and then them giving like these very heartfelt like scenarios about like, oh, do you know how scary it was when I heard that shotgun get racked, like stuff like that. What are your what's your take on essentially gun control? I saw you also did one about seven things that you should know when you talk about guns. That seems to be an issue that you are pretty vocal about. You're in New York City, which is pretty controlled when it comes to guns. I'm in Los Angeles, same way. What's your take on gun control? Because it seems to be using comedy to highlight like the truth about it. But what's your take on the issue as a whole?
Yeah. So I definitely believe in self-defense. And I think one of the problems with discussions about gun control is that so much focus is on the tool rather than what that tool is being used for. So I think I understand how serious violence is, what can go wrong, and I think that people, if they choose, should have the ability to defend themselves, right?
Yeah.
Now with that doesn't necessarily mean that I have blinders on to comedic possibilities. So one of the other videos that we have is your gun makes you look like a D word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's about an open carry guy who I play the character Sam Patriot, who basically has like a daily vlog, and he's going around, open carrying his rifle, and he's upset because everyone keeps calling him a D, a D word, a D.
You can say it, by the way. This isn't. I don't.
Oh, okay.
You can curse.
Okay, your gun makes you look like a dick. So
yeah.
now I happen to support open carry. If that's your thing, if that's what you want to do, I probably wouldn't do that. It'd probably be more of a concealed carrier, right? But also there's something to be said and made fun of about dudes who go out there, dressed like Rambo, to go to the coffee shop. So I'm able to operate in this, in this sort of Venn diagram where I support the right of self-defense, but also I find comedy in quite a few things there. And something that I was noticing just in general, whenever we talk about gun control, you sort of the one perspective you're always getting is from anti-gun people, and you'll hear things like, we don't want to take your guns away, we just want to take away the AR-15, which happens to be the most popular rifle in the country. And it's like well, if you're being honest about it, that would definitely help the situation. And yeah, for the video, you're talking about 7 things. What's it? It's like 7 things you should know about guns before talking about them, or something like that.
Which was informative. It was I thought it was really good points. I tried, promote to my class and stuff. But it was also fun. It was also funny making fun of both sides. Yeah,
I appreciate that. So with a video like that, I was basically pointing out, like, hey, there are men and women out there who know a lot about guns, right? So if you want to actually, talk to them about about guns, you should know at least some of the basics about it, so you don't end up, talking like someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, especially when we're talking about legislation, right? Because once something is legislated, once there's a bill that's passed, it's a law, and laws are enforced. So you want to make sure that you have, the specifics of what is it that you're actually asking for. And it's so funny. This is something that I keep kicking myself over as well. One of the 7 reasons that I point out, I mistakenly, I got, what's it called? Oh man, what was it? I'm already forgetting it. I mistook assault weapon for assault rifle.
Oh, okay.
So here I am, this asshole trying to, talk down to and patronize people. But meanwhile, I'm getting assault rifle and assault weapon mixed up. So assault weapon is one of those sort of nebulous terms that, a gun is an assault weapon if it has like a, part of it can have like a bayonet, attached to it. Assault rifle is a rifle that can go from fully automatic to semi-automatic. So here I was, I probably just bored everybody listening to it, but here it was, I was a dick and I got it wrong. But hopefully after that video, I was able to have a meaningful conversation.
Well, yeah. And even the nuance of that, and I appreciate you like pointing out that, like, you're not like a super gun expert as well, is the point is that I think that, and I just put this out on my Instagram recently, is be careful when you have really strong opinions about issues you don't understand. And that's, I've had that conversation where people say, we need to ban, assault rifles. And I say, well, what's that? They're like, the kind that shoot a shit ton of bullets. I say, well, is that the way the law is going to be written? It shoots a shit ton of bullets. Like, they don't know the very, very basics. I mean, the very basics about, what it means to be, semi-automatic every time you pull the trigger. It's very interesting. California banned them, and they had to define it. When you make something illegal, you have to define what you're making illegal. So they had to define assault rifle, and they said long groove barrel, pistol grip, detachable magazine, shoulder stock. So all California did was just blend. I don't know if you've seen like a California assault rifle. It's funny. They just blend the handle into the stock. All good. Nothing else changed about the way it's functioned, but it got around the law. And that's the stuff that's going to happen if you're not familiar with what you're talking about. And Colion Noir, the gun guy, and also I believe Killer Mike too, were talking about how, a lot of the gun laws being passed in like New York, Chicago, LA, they're being passed by people who really get their ideas from movies, like literally from movies, and that is going to be a problem. So highlighting that, again, it's highlighting the elitism that we were talking about earlier, which is when I drive through Malibu now, because there's like some level of civil unrest out here, is everyone, if you're a celebrity, you just hire some retired Navy SEAL to stand outside your gates, but if you live in Inglewood, you can't afford that. People are breaking in. You hate the crime element in these bad neighborhoods. That's the way you protect yourself. And it's just Gavin Newsom or Bill de Blasio would never even think like that because they've never been in that situation. So again, even guns is really about highlighting the hypocrisy of these elites that don't know what it's like to be, Joe Everyman or, Jane Everywoman. Yeah.
Yeah. And if there were a time where, gun control people should maybe just like step back a little bit, it would be now. I mean, we're talking civil unrest. We're talking about, a lot of innocent people being harmed, being brutalized. And also, you have concerns of, people on the left of what could possibly be a coup, after the election. So
it's martial law, the police, if the police are so dangerous, that's how it started in the first place. The Black Panthers saying like, hey, cops, stop killing us black folk. We're going to carry guns to stop you. Right. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no. That's a very interesting story in California with the Black Panthers and basically getting rid of open carry, that history there. And it's one of those things where it's like, we really do need to be, having more and more of these conversations. So
yeah, well, I think, and part of what comedy does is it opens up these conversations. another one that I want to get into, and I know you have to just break for a second to feed your meter.
Oh, I did it. I did
You
it
did?
anyway. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. You
wow.
didn't even see it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's slick. One of my, I think maybe my favorite, and I'm a little disappointed that it doesn't have more views. It still has, whatever, like 300,000 views, but is the political opinion surrogates. That was awesome. And
Oh, thank you.
and it was really cool too, because you got like like actors to come in who like are those like whatever intersectionality matrix like people, but the concept of it. Well, should you explain it, or should you explain it?
Um, yeah, hopefully I do a good job of it.
Yeah.
The political opinion surrogates is a company where if you're, say, a straight white male, there are certain opinions you're not allowed to voice in public, right? So the POSs, which somebody pointed out, POSs will have somebody of a protected class say your exact same opinion for you, right? So if you have opinion on policing in Black communities, there is a political opinion surrogate, an African American, who can speak for you, so you don't get shouted down. And they run the gambit of all different kinds of identities.
It's so good. Yeah, there's like a gay dude, there's a trans woman, there's a Black woman, there's it's and there's a Black man, and it's just like this is something that I've dealt with a lot, just being on social media. I'm trying to engage with people on social media to try and bring some positivity, and just over and over again, you're a man, you're a straight white man, you don't get a say in this. Like I bring up stuff like Greg Pincus and Earl Haas, who invented the tampon, the birth control pill. Like, isn't it good that they were working for women's causes? Because
you bring that up all the time.
Tampon, huh?
All the time. Any chance you get, you just throw that out there.
I try to a lot. I'm like, if you say like, hey, you guys should stay out of women's issues, then ladies, you wouldn't have tampons or birth control. And I feel like those are two of the biggest ways to unchain yourselves to have freedom. But this is, Sam Harris has brought up a lot of the issues, actually. This one and the other one I want to get to about defending Trump. But Sam Harris has brought up that he did a great podcast called Coming Back from the Brink. I don't know if you listened to that.
I think I heard him reference it, but I haven't.
It was about like after George Floyd, about like racism and policing and stuff like that. And he even said vocally what you guys did in that sketch, which was, I was thinking about bringing on, Thomas Chatterton Williams or Coleman Hughes or someone like that to say the exact same things that I'm saying, but I don't want to play that game. And, at the end of the day, we should listen to, this is Martin Luther King. Take people based on the content of their character and their ideas, not the color of their skin. And good ideas and bad ideas can come from any shape and size of person. But you turned it into this really funny sketch that's like so over the top and silly, and it has great special effects. And it's like, it gets people to hopefully recognize, who wouldn't want to hear it from me, recognize in this, what are they gonna say? Those are real actors that are real people. They open up to like, oh, well, maybe that actor actually thinks differently than every other Black person. Like, Black people are some monolith. I think that your comedy gets at, like, it starts like a crack. And all I need as an educator is a crack. I just need an in, and I think that your comedy gets that crack.
Thanks. Yeah. Ultimately, arguments like that. Hey, if you're a white man, you need to, stay out of this. Or if you're a woman, you need to stay out of this. It's an ad hominem. It has nothing to do with your, with the content of your argument or the ideas that you're promoting. It's all about what you are and the way that you look. And I had a recent example of that on I think it was on Facebook or something like that. I posted something. It had to do with abortion, and which if you're a man, you gotta step out of that. But a woman said, if you don't have a uterus, I'm not interested in your argument. To which I responded, if you have a uterus, I'm not interested in any of your opinions. And saying that, my ad hominem is stronger. And it's like, could you imagine if there was somebody, imagine if I really believed that, the idea that, hey, if you lack this organ, or if you have this organ, I have no interest in what you have to say. And that conversation pretty much devolved into this woman who I think she was Latina,
Mhm.
uh, basically calling out, that she was being spoken down to by three white guys, including me in it, and I happen to be Latino. And I had to say to her, like, you look like a white chick to me. It's so weird too, where you have these odd scales of identity too,
Yeah.
where it's like somehow, oh, you're Latina, so you're I don't know if you're above or below a güerita, a güera, which is like a white woman. It's just silly, and uh, ultimately important conversations aren't happening, and knowledge isn't actually being you know being gained here because of these
Yeah.
conversations.
Yeah, it is silly. I mean, that's the thing, is this stuff is silly. Come on. Come on. We're going to look back in generations from now. Our kids, our grandkids are going to look back and be like, you guys were nuts. You guys were supporting this stuff. And I think that's why like we, the internet TV stuff is going to age really well. Like it's
Oh,
going to age
thank you.
like a fine wine. Like right now, people might just feel like it's grape juice. I mean, I know you have a good following, which I'm glad about, but like, I think in time, people are going to go back like, oh, these were the canaries in the coal mine. These are the ones that were saying like, this is absurd. We have to laugh at it, but you're not forcing the jokes. Like they're actually funny jokes too. Are you a comedy writer? Is that like big part of what you're? These
Oh
like yours?
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah,
great
yeah.
jokes.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that you always run the risk of coming off preachy anytime that you take
Mhm.
on you
Yeah.
take on a topic, especially if it's a divisive one or a controversial one. So my goal is that the comedy always wins out on I don't even want to call myself an activist. I don't think I'm an activist. Maybe in my personal life, I don't know. But I'm hoping that people come away with, oh, that was a great line, or that was really funny, or oh, that's an interesting way to look at that topic. I haven't looked at it that way before.
Yeah. Well, the lack of humor among the like kind of like the far extreme left woke, but actually I shouldn't say it. It's on the right too. I was making fun of Candace Owens for something, and her people came after me, reached out to Instagram to cancel me. Candace Owens fans, like, so I shouldn't say it's on the left. It really is on both sides. People are losing their sense of humor. You can't make fun of Trump to like a Charlie Kirk or something like that. That's not
Well,
funny. It's like, come on,
well,
Trump's funny. Trump's
yeah.
funny. Maybe I'm
Well,
immune. I don't know.
well, the thing is, the people who say the personal is political, you know,
Yeah.
that's not just the left, it's the right.
Yeah.
And
It is.
it's it's wild where I think someone had pointed out where you have TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, then on the other end you have Trump devotion syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when people sort of wrap themselves up their identity so much in their political leanings, um, they're going to take anything, even if it is a joke, as a personal
Yeah.
attack. And there's a comedian named J.L. Coven who does an incredible Trump impression, and he's been blowing up. And he's in this position where he does such a great impression of Trump, right? Where fans of Trump will like some of the videos that he does, and then see like things that he's posting that are some of them are jokes against Trump, and the others are like his legitimate criticisms of the Trump administration, and they'll be like, how dare you do this, or their brain just won't be able to accept the fact that this guy can do such an amazing impression of this dude and also hate his guts, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah, it's one of those things where I think I think I posted the other day. I'm like, if you're a person who basically cut off your relationships with your parents over politics, then you really need this civil war to happen. Like, oh man, you really need this thing to happen, because what else do you got?
Yeah. Yeah. The like that's and I think an important thing too is just like being able to make fun of both across all of it. Speaking about Trump, you had one where it was stop making me defend Donald Trump. That is something I've said. That's something that I know, again, Sam Harris and other people like Eric Weinstein and people have like Brett Weinstein have been saying Like, stop. Why are you making me? I don't like this guy. Why are you making me defend him? I defend him nonstop. I defend him to my students in my class. I defend him on Instagram all the time. I defend him to people who are just furious. And then they send me stuff that's just like, how is your boy doing? It's like, it's not my boy. And when I watched your sketch, I was like, oh, thank you. Yes. Like, we're trying to be reasonable in my criticisms. I think there's a dangerous level of like Boy Who Cried Wolf with him that I don't trust him. I don't know where he's going to go. And I want to be able to see his bad mistakes, but I don't trust CNN now. So how do I know? And Fox News won't say anything bad about him. So now where do I go? And that's worrisome to me, but you made it funny about how adding nuance about Trump is just not welcome in a lot of situations.
Thanks. I remember there was a really great episode of Sam Harris's podcast. I think Waking Up, right? I'm not sure if that's been the title of the podcast forever, but I think it was before the election of 2016, and he had on Andrew Sullivan, and they did an absolutely fantastic job of telling you all the reasons why you shouldn't vote for Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And then they also told you all the reasons why you shouldn't vote for Hillary. And I think both of them ended up, I think Harris, without a doubt, I think ended up voting for Hillary. But it was I think a very enlightening, eye-opening exploration of the failures of both of these candidates, and people were going to, I think they said, people are going to really, if they just listen to the first half, they think that we're saying that you should vote for Trump. Listen to the second hour.
Yeah.
And I think if you're a politician, you need to be under scrutiny, without a doubt.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely one of those guys where I see some of the things that people, spend their time arguing about, like a bullshit tweet here and there. And it's like, man, there's a lot of really consequential stuff that's going on that, deserves a lot more attention. And it makes it tough too. Like you brought up, who do you trust? That's tough, man. It really, it's really, it puts me in a tough position just as a citizen, where I'm like, mm-hmm. Who am I trusting? This pandemic has shown us, just how off the wall all this stuff is. It's like, if there's a moment in time when we really do need to have, knowledgeable people who we can trust, it's during a pandemic. So.
Well, yeah. And we were talking about Andrew Schulze. Like, I don't know, Lou, maybe it's you. Like, sorry, but like, maybe like the fact that you are able to see nonsense from both sides, that you don't seem to have any kind of like blind loyalty to someone or the other. You've had on experts. You've had Deborah Soh and Coleman Hughes on We the Internet TV. I saw you doing interviews with them and talking to them about this stuff. Like, so you have those connections and stuff like that. I don't know. Like, I mean, do you do like news commentary and stuff?
I haven't done anything like, in the moment news commentary or breaking news or stuff like that. Usually the stuff that I do, the commentary is, I need a few days to think it out, it over. And the reality is too, there are a lot of things that I won't comment on because I simply don't know. I did not follow the, charges of Russian collusion. I couldn't, I'm not good at reading or watching mysteries. Right. I don't think my brain works that way where I'm able to figure out, the whodunit and all that. So on something like that, I mean, I hope people aren't turning to me to have a comment on it. So even recently, with Trump, coming down with COVID, my hope was that, when he beats this thing, it'll lead more people to look into the statistics and the data about, death rates and that sort of thing. I hope more people, look into it. And then I had people, on my Facebook page coming at me like, well, what about this? Have you thought about the people who, come away from COVID with, chronic fatigue and heart, their heart being
don't have the doctors he has and don't have a helicopter to take them.
And it's like, I don't know. I don't know about that. Like I'm I'm not an expert on that, you know? So and I wonder too, just how many of those, you know, sort of questions are more about, I just want to destroy you online rather than actually have a genuine conversation.
Yeah, it's a poisonous place for sure. Lou, thank you so much for being here. Can I know that you started like a new endeavor now with a new podcast and stuff like that. Read the Internet TV on YouTube. Definitely subscribe to that because it's awesome. And even if you get triggered by it, like listen, you'll laugh. Take a step back, you'll laugh. Okay, unless you're really really hook, line, and sinker into whatever cult you're on, left or right. It's funny stuff, and you know, it makes light of some situations that people are really angry over. But where else can people, like, you know, get a hold of social media, podcast, all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, you can follow me at the Lou Perez on Twitter, and then I just started with locals.com. So if you go to thelouperez.locals.com, we're building a community there, a retirement community, if you will, where people can come and you know, have unfiltered conversations. So one of the drawbacks of, you know, Facebook and YouTube is that, you know, sometimes your stuff gets dinged, and sometimes you'll go to Facebook jail for a little while. So fortunately, on locals.com, that isn't the case, and you get to support me and see the stuff that I'm working on before I release it. And I started a podcast, the Lou Perez podcast, brilliant title. And I'm going to be releasing podcast episodes a little earlier, a couple of days earlier on that platform. So if you want to support my work, I hope you'll check it out.
Yeah. I think just to the audience, like if you want, like part of the reason why the media and the news and your information is so just shitty is because it's free. So if you want better options out there, you have to use the capitalist model that we're in, which is I'm going to support this one way or another, because this is all, this craziness outside your window is all largely, I believe, part of us taking whatever's kind of spoon fed to us for free. So I think we need to support the people that are out there doing the things that you want to support. So I hope people go check it out, though.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I appreciate what you're doing. I'm glad you're doing it. So keep it up, please.